Hi, guys. This is Daniel Alexander Cannon, and this is the Supernatural Show, where we delve into all things supernatural, and nothing's off limits. So, today we have a special guest that's here with us today that I'm excited to have here, and her name is Laura. And she's going to be telling us some about the supernatural things that have happened in her life ever since she was a child. And we're going to be coming to her there in just a minute and let her tell us all the supernatural happenings that have happened to her. And y'all guys also can do that as well by going to the website. The website is TheSupernatural.Show. And you can go there, and there's a button at the top where you can click on Submit Your Story. And you can submit your story, and you can also be a guest on the show, just like Laura is today. And, of course, as always, I have my lovely co-host here with me today, Shannon. And Shannon, what in the supernatural is going on with you?
Well, I have an interesting story. On Monday, when we did our show afterwards, we were all kind of chatting after the show with our lovely guest, Karen. And as we were all having discussions and talking, I literally saw an orb just shoot up on this side. And Daniel actually caught a glimpse of it too. And as I was in shock and we're all talking about, must be an angel, letting us know that we were doing something good. Another one popped up on the other side. And if I wasn't actually still on camera talking with everyone, I don't know if I'd actually have been able to notice that or to see that. But it was just really cool because it was like right there. And it was like, oh, this is happening in real time. It's like, did you see that? I was like, wow. So that was pretty cool.
That was indeed. It was. I did see it. I seen a flash and a movement across the screen. And at first I didn't realize what it was. But then Shannon, of course, recognized it. And you say, somebody might say, well, how is it that you can possibly think that was an angel? Well, I would tell you this: if you've seen the things that I've seen and been the places I've been and had the experiences I've had, you would understand better. But you'll also understand better if you take a look at my documentary that I have. I'm trying to actually find the link right now as I'm talking. Let me see if I can find it. We've talked about it and actually shown some of it on the show here before, but let me see. Let me see if I can find it real quick, because I like to drop the link in the description of the video, but I wasn't quite prepared as I should be. So I apologize for that, guys. But I'll see if I can't find that while we're busy here doing the show and stuff, and I'll try to post that a little bit later on. The link to it. It's called UFOs, Orbs, and Lights in the Heavens. And many years ago, I started having these balls of light show up around me, in front of me, and these ones that I normally see are very large. They're bright white and round all about, which is how the Bible describes what an angel looks like. Ezekiel said it was a wheel within a wheel, energy rotating in on itself. But really what it is, it's a toroidal field, the shape of an apple basically, and an image of like a hurricane or a supercell thunderstorm, the way it spins and the energy flows in and out. It's knowledge from the garden, as a matter of fact, and I've been lucky enough to see angels at this point. Probably about 120 different times where they've come around me where I'm able to see them. But I've never had one just show up right around me, a smaller one like that. So probably a good thing it wasn't a big one, because it wouldn't fit in that room with you, Shannon. Some of the ones I've seen, they're about the size of a Volkswagen a lot of time.
Right. And it was bright white. I mean, it looked like bright light,
Yeah.
just, and it moved so fast. And you have to understand, my little studio here is a very closed off area. I was by myself. I don't have any little bugs or anything going on. There was nothing flashing any light. And then it happened again as we were talking about it again. It was just, it was pretty neat.
Hmm. And at some point here, I'll find that documentary and drop it in. While somebody else is talking, I can work on it a little bit. Mr. Dan, what the supernatural's going on with
Good
you?
morning, sir. Well, the main
Good morning.
thing I've got is this afternoon I'm supposed to meet with a young lady who says that she's got objects moving around in her house that's scaring her and her grandmother. So I told her I would come and help take care of that. I already know there's going to have to be some deliverance done. So that's what I've got going on this afternoon.
So I would say that counts as supernatural. Yeah, Dan does a lot of this kind of stuff where he goes boots on the ground. He goes right straight to the problem and deals with it in the authority that our Father in heaven has given us that most people don't understand that we have. And we're going to be doing a complete episode talking about that here real soon, where we're going to get into discussing the authority that we have and explain as much as Dan and Shannon know about it and discuss it with everybody. So we'll be doing that real soon. What'd you say, Dan?
I said, amen.
Oh, amen. Yes, absolutely. And guess what, guys, too? We have a supernatural guest with us here today. And like I said, her name's Laura. And she's here with us by audio today. And we're so glad to have her here. And I've had a chance to speak with her briefly, but I didn't let her get into telling me everything that she wants to talk about because I want to hear it here first and share it with y'all guys. And Laura, did you ever write into the show and tell a story? I think you did.
Yes.
Okay, so you have one in the book already.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, excellent. Well, Laura, I guess you just kind of start where you want to and tell us what in the supernatural's been going on with you.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start with my mother told me when I was born with a veil. I don't know if that, I've heard that does mean something. I don't really know for sure. You only know what you're told.
You only know what you.
Right. I would say the first supernatural thing that happened to me that I remember was I was about 4 years old, and I remember my parents it was a picnic. It was during the summer, and there was probably several people, not a lot of people, over. And I used to like to take a little stick and draw in the dirt. And I remember I was sitting on the back of my legs, with my feet on the ground, and I was writing with the stick in the dirt. And all of a sudden, I saw a pair of women's shoes, the toes right in front of me. And the only way I could really explain it is it was like I guess like the 40s style, the short, thick heel, those type of shoes.
Okay.
And I started slowly looking up, and it was a woman wearing one of those like a 40s 50s style dress, where it just comes down to like the calf, maybe a little at the bottom of the calf. And as I looked up, she was standing there with her hands clasped in front of her. She had that 40s style hair. She had dark hair, and she started talking to me, and she told me that I had a little voice inside me, and that I needed to listen to that little voice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, being 4, I'm like, what? I got a little voice inside me, And so I ran to tell my mother because I wanted my mom to meet her, because I had a warm feeling from her, like I wanted to give her a big hug. And so I ran to my mother to tell my mother that this lady said I had a little voice inside me. And I'm like, come on, I want you to meet her. I want you to meet her. And when I turned around to go to run back, she was gone. So I was always one of those determined kids. I'm looking around and looking around. I'm like, where'd she go? Where'd she go? My mother's like, she was kind of dismissive. And I'm like, no, she was here. Where did she go? She looked real to me. And so my mother finally was like, well, what did she look like? So I described her, and she was, asking me questions, with her hair and clothes and stuff like that. And I can still picture my mother like looking up, trying to think. She's like, that sounds like Grandma Myrtle, which was it's either my maternal grandmother or my paternal or my mother's father's mother. But so I always remembered that. I don't know why, but I do. I always remembered I wanted to try to find that little voice inside me, after that. And
Yeah, that's pretty supernatural for sure. That's so. Did you see her face?
yes, I did. She looked like a regular person. That's why I was like freaked out after, because I'm like, where is she? She couldn't have left that quick.
Right,
And my
right.
mother said there was no such person there. Because this was I was born in '69, so this would have been like 1973. So nobody really dressed like that at that time.
Right. And this was in what decade? What decade was this out of? Was this the 70s or something?
Yeah, it was like 1973.
Okay. And the person was dressed as if they were from the
From the 40s.
40s,
Yeah.
and hairstyle even from the 40s.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious. When these kind of things happen these days, I stop and I try to figure out what the symbolism means and what it all means. And I know you're doing that too, and still wondering about what it meant and everything. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. I always did, through my teenage years, you doubt yourself and you doubt the voice and you kind of test it. But as I got older, I realized, that voice that will never steer you wrong ever, and to
Yeah,
always listen
call it
to it.
the I, and some other people call it the quiet voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it a lot, and I've heard it be a little bit not quite so quiet.
Yeah. Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes I've had it a few times too. I guess maybe I wasn't listening or something, and it was determined to make me hear.
hmm Yeah, I, probably the loudest I ever heard it was "Get Up and Walk Out Now," which you might have heard me talk about before. The story behind that.
Uh-huh.
I got up and walked out now too, and it worked out. That was good. I listened to that voice. It was perfect.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It saved me more than once.
Right. Exactly. Just continue. We want to hear everything you want to talk about.
Okay. The next thing that happened, I believe I was 5. That's what I always remember through the years, that I was about 5. I was sitting in my bedroom, and we kind of lived in the woods. I grew up in the country, and
How old were you again?
I was about 5, so it would have been like 74.
Okay.
I was sitting in my room, and I'm playing with a Barbie doll, and it was strange because I remember the house was pretty quiet. Now I'm the middle of 5 kids, and my father was always working, my mom was always home, and I remember the house had gotten pretty quiet, which I found odd because, with a lot of people in the house like that, it's never usually quiet. And then all of a sudden, I remember like hearing something. At first, I couldn't figure it out because I was so young, and it was like a gravelly voice trying to speak to me, and it caught my attention because I thought it was weird. And then I listened for a second. Then I went back to playing with my Barbie doll, and then all of a sudden I heard it again, and it said hello, but it said hello in like this deep gravelly voice. I mean, like a real deep man's voice. Like I've never heard a man with that deep of a voice before.
Wow.
And so I'm like looking around trying, is there somebody here, and I was like, who's this? And right after I said that, I realized that I don't know why I realized this, but right after I said it, I realized I'm like, I don't have to speak out loud. I don't know why, but that was just what came to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said that, I heard him say a friend, and that was it. And
a friend.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Did the voice just sound like normal dialect to you, normal language, or is there an accent, or is it?
No, there was no accent.
Most noticeable thing was how deep it was.
Yes, it was deep and gravelly.
Okay.
Then the next thing I remember, I don't know if it was that year or a year later or what. Me and my older brother, because we're only 3 years apart, so I used to play with my brother, and we were gonna go outside, go play in the woods. Like we did. It was summer. We always did that. And this day, my mother never usually stopped us to tell us anything, because once 9 o'clock hit, she was like, "Get outside." And we went to go outside, and she's like, "Hold on," and we're like, "Yeah," and she's like, "I want you kids to be careful when you're in the woods, because I saw a homeless man in the woods." And I'll never forget this part. She kind of looked up, and she had, her eyebrows came together like this questioning look. And she's like, and he had a fur coat on. She's like, "I don't know how he can take it in the heat, because it had been in the 90s, and, being a kid, you don't really, you're just like, okay, and we went on to play outside. And I was probably about this time, I was probably about 7 or so. And you know how little kids get into like trying to dig for buried treasure and stuff. And so I'm digging into the ground, and I'm trying to I'm collecting rocks. And
what kind of rocks?
Collecting rocks.
Collecting rocks.
Yeah, I like when I was little, I liked the rocks that sparkled.
Mm-hmm.
And so our front porch had no railing on it. It was just the porch itself. So when one morning when after I came out, when you go up the stairs on my porch, to your immediate left, that very corner of the porch that stuck out, that's most noticeable, there was a little black flat rock in the shape of a pyramid, but the base of it was wider than the rest of it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, like a pyramid.
Yeah. And there was nothing else on the porch, just this rock. And I picked it up, and I moved it in the sun to see if it was shiny, and it wasn't. So I threw it, and all of a sudden I heard in my mind, "Hey, that wasn't very nice." And I was like, "But it's not shiny." And so the next day when I came out again to play, there was a little white shiny rock. It was like, I don't know, so I guess like a quartz crystal. You know, it was like it was it wasn't smooth or anything. It was it was sparkly.
Mm.
And I remember I was like I was enthralled with it. I brought it in the house to show my mother, and then the next thing that happened, I was probably about 12, and I had when you're around 11, 12, you want to exercise your freedom a little. And so I went a little deep into the woods. Not, the woods weren't real deep. Um, but I went, kind of far. For me, it was far, from my house by myself in the woods. And, I was just trying to climb trees and whatnot, looking at the leaves and the bark, I was always enamored by nature. And so it was definitely fall because, as you walked along, all the leaves on the ground, it would crunch, crunch, as you walked. And so I started walking because I was about ready to go back. And I noticed from my left side, every time I took a step, I could hear someone else taking a step. And so I stopped and I did it like 2 or 3 times to see if I wasn't hearing things. And it sounded pretty close. It sounded 20, 30 feet away from me. Like I kept stopping and looking, but I couldn't see anything. And so like the third time I stopped, I'm like, where are you? I can't see you. And no, there was nothing, no response, nothing. So then I got the idea in my head that I'm going to trick them, by walking, and then I'm going to skip a step, to see if I can fool them, And so I did it, and I did. And I thought it was funny. And then all of a sudden I realized I'm not by myself in the woods, and so I ran home.
We never are.
Yeah. Yeah. That was weird. I should have been able to see if it was a person, I should have been able to see him because clearly.
So you what kind of tell us more about the skip thing and describe that a little bit more. How you skip the fool the whatever was not mocking you, but
copying me.
Copying, yeah,
copying my steps. Well, I started walking. And what I did was like a kind of a skip hop, where you kind of like hop on the same foot that you just put down and then step. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And when I did that, whatever it was,
kind of like a skip hop, yeah.
They kept walking, so I heard their footstep, and because I didn't take one, you know what I mean? Because I like kind of skipped.
Uh-huh.
And I guess I was about 11, 12, and I said out loud, I was like, haha, I fooled you. And then all of a sudden it just hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, you're not by yourself, And the first thing, of course, I thought of was my mother was telling me there's a homeless man living in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
And so I got scared and I ran. But I mean, in the end, I like years later and listening to other people's stories, I personally think it was a Sasquatch because it's the only thing that makes sense to me. I mean, a homeless man in a fur coat, I mean, especially where I live, I can't imagine someone would want to live in the middle of nowhere in the woods,
What state are you in?
New York.
New York State. So you're probably out in the countryside of the state.
Yes.
Yeah, most people think of New York and they just think of the big city, but New York up to the west, the northwest, is lots of wilderness out there and mountains and things like that.
And when I was young, it was all cow farms and horse farms.
Mm-hmm. Well, you say Sasquatch, and for me, that's an easy thing to relate to because, well, I know they're real. I know they are a supernatural type of being that lives in our forests, and they don't just stay in the forest, but that seems to be where they prefer because we as humans are really dangerous. We like
Oh
to
yeah.
shoot it. We like to shoot at things we don't understand.
Oh yeah.
And matter of fact, where I'm living right now, you might have heard me mention before on one of the shows, Laura. There's apparently there's still a pod of them that a family of them that live back here behind where I'm staying now. I'm about I don't know 17 miles out of a not a big city to start with. It's a small city. I'm
Uh,
about 17 miles out in the country,
yeah.
and I was out one night. Well, I've heard many things, but one night it was obvious where it did the big long howl 3 times, that kind of
Yeah.
long stretched out howl,
Yeah.
and that confirmed it for me because there is no animal in the woods that can do that. And then there were all kind of supernatural things going on around me, and at nighttime I would hear them beating on the ground and beating on trees at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And my next door neighbor, she has a lot of webcams, not webcams, security cams up,
Uh,
and She told me one time she was watching her cameras late at night one night, and there were cavemen in her backyard. And I said, "Cavemen, huh?" And I already had my experiences here. And I said, "Cavemen, huh?" She said, "Yeah, but when I go out there, they're gone. But there are several of them walking around back at the edge of the woods back there, and she would see them sometimes."
well.
And and then the other night, uh, um, one of the people that living in the house there, the dogs started barking, so they went outside. This was just like 2 nights ago. They went outside, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, seeing what the dogs were barking at and raising sand at, and they heard something go kind of like whoop, whoop, whoop,
Well. Well.
doing that kind of thing
Yeah.
at the dogs. And which got the dogs all, they love to talk a lot of trash until one of these things show up. Then,
Right. Right.
then they'll tuck tail and go get under anything they possibly can. But Dan, I know you've had a lot of, or I say a lot, some experience with this kind of stuff. I don't know if Shannon has yet or not, but Dan's probably got some story. Matter of fact, I might ask Dan to share a little bit about this subject here in a little bit, but we want to keep hearing some more from you for now. So, was that it? Was that all your experiences when it comes to the woods people?
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately.
Well, that's pretty good because see, it's interesting. The lady that you said when you were real little, she said you had a voice. Maybe what she was saying is that you had the ability to communicate without speaking. That's what it sounds like. And if that's a gift that you've been given or have access to, because I think many of us maybe have it, but when it ever happens, we shut it off and think, "Oh God, that's crazy," and we don't try to
Yes.
further go with it.
I agree. I agree.
hmm You think that might be what that lady was trying to tell you?
I well, what I think was, she told me to always listen to that voice.
Oh,
So, so
okay.
I might not have said that. I'm sorry, but so I think that's why I don't know if it was an angel or a ghost, but I tend to think she was an angel, only
Right.
because of how attracted to her I was. Like I just wanted to hug her and not let go, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I wanted my mom to meet her, and
Well, maybe what
I
she meant by always listen to the voice maybe meant don't turn it off and think that you're crazy and then block it because once you block it, it's hard to get back.
right,
Especially as a child, there's so many things that children have the ability to hear and see, and we tell them it's crazy or you didn't see that, or we make fun of them or give them a spanking or things like that. So,
right.
anyways, that's very interesting. So, anyways, yeah, keep going. We want to hear more.
Okay. See, I mean, I grew up like that. Like when I would talk about, weird things that happened to my mother, my mother would always say, don't tell anybody, she's like, they're gonna think you're crazy.
Right.
But so as a teenager, I used to always, you know for years and years, I've had dreams that would come true. I would get premonitions also. um I'm sorry. Let me just go back to one incident when I was about 7.
Okay.
One day, I walked into the kitchen to my mother, and I told her that I said, "Mom, I used to be an angel," which I thought was weird because I have 2 daughters, and the older one's an adult, and the younger one is 16 right now. But when my younger daughter was 7, I never told her about this, but she came up to me and said the same thing to me, which I found odd. But as I got older, when I would tell my mother about, things that I would see and stuff, she told me, she was like, I think you have the gift, because I guess she said, my mother always said that things like that would happen to her. Um, Now I remember one time I was about 19. I was driving home, I believe from work or college, and because I was living with my parents still, and my younger sister, her friend lived up the street from us, and I was driving past her house. She was 16, 17, but she had a newborn baby, and when I drove past her house, the only way I can describe what happened was, it was like for just a split second, time slowed down when I looked at her window, which I didn't know at the time was her bedroom window. I didn't know that till my sister told me later. Uh, and it was like, it's like someone just playing a small clip of a movie, but you see it in your mind. And I saw that window that I looked at with big black billowing smoke coming out, like a house fire.
Oh, wow.
So I gotten the chills from it, because it was so real, and I just knew that to listen to it. So as soon as I pulled in my driveway, I ran down the house and I tell my mother and my younger sister what just happened. And I was like, I want to go tell her because she's got a newborn baby. I don't want anything to happen to them, because my sister said that's Tina's bedroom. And I'm like, well, maybe I should go tell her, so they don't, get hurt, so they don't get hurt in a fire. And my mother's like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, but why? And she's like, because she said, they're not going to believe that you had a premonition. She's like, they're going to think you started it. And
Oh,
I was like, you're right. And 2 weeks later, we heard the fire trucks, the sirens going off. So we ran up to see what was going on, and I had to run up the street as far as I could, that I was allowed to see, and there was smoke coming out of the same exact window that I saw. It was exactly as I saw it, which I
wow.
always thought was weird. You know,
Isn't
I
that
mean,
sad that
I'm
people
sorry.
won't? I say, isn't that sad that people, like if you were to tell them, your house is going to burn down, and I've seen this in a vision, that people are so closed off from the supernatural world that's all around us that they would then immediately think that you were the one who said it when it did catch on fire. It's like,
It is
it's
sad.
just sad.
It
It's sad
is.
that it's like that.
It is.
Indeed.
My mother and I have premonitions and visions, and we've always had that gift too. And we've helped each other and other people by speaking out, even though I know that a lot of people think I'm a little different, but I still, I can't keep my mouth shut. If I have something depressing going on, I'm going to shout it out at the rooftops no matter what.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. People always thought I was a little different too, I guess.
Right. But luckily, my mom is the same way on that. She never kept me quiet on those things. We tell each other these things right away and things along those lines. And I did help it. I helped save her life once because of that. And she helped to save my daughter's life because of that.
Wow.
So, I mean, very well meaning, I'm sure. Your mom said to not say anything, but
right.
When you do have those things, I do think it's important to do everything you can to say, hey, God's showing me something. There's got to be a reason, know.
Uh-huh.
That was definitely confirmation of what you saw was a true vision. And, you definitely have a gift. All these things that you've been talking about, I'm like...
And you don't let anybody take that away from you, and I'm sure you haven't. But anybody who's listening out there are many gifts that God gives us, our Father in heaven gives us, and makes more accessible, easier to different ones of us. And a lot of people will say, well, that don't fit into the natural, that is supernatural, so therefore you're crazy, or you're a witch, or you're this, or you're that. But you're not. And you just cannot let anybody take away something so beautiful as a gift to be able to communicate without speech. I mean, that is an amazing gift to have. And for anybody listening, hold on to your gifts and appreciate them and use them wisely.
Oh, yes.
Use them wisely. Absolutely. What you think of there, Mr. Dan? You seem pretty tense there. Like you'll burn a hole in the camera.
There were several things, but a gift that she's talking about comes from the Holy Spirit. It's called the Word of Knowledge. It is something, information that's given you that you don't have access to or have a reason for knowing it. It just comes to you and often will show itself in a vision form. But it is a gift from the Holy Spirit called a word of knowledge. So you have to hold on to that.
Thank you for saying that, because when I became a born again Christian when I was 18 on my 18th birthday, and I started hanging out with my friend who was a Christian. Kept encouraging me from the time I was 14. But anytime I tried to talk to another adult about that, trying to find out why things like this happen, they would just tell me, oh, it's, demons and blah, 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 and I'm like, but it doesn't feel like that, And this is the first time somebody has ever said something different other than that, that I wasn't,
Well, I guess you're in a company that is let's just use simple terms, a little bit more educated about the supernatural world. And when you hear things, you always have to use discernment. You always have to talk to Father about it.
Right.
And it'll become clear. It don't mean that when you hear something or see something strange that it is all pure and good. It ain't necessarily that.
Exactly.
Like yesterday I had about how many buzzards were out there yesterday?
About 20.
There were more than 20. There were a lot of buzzards circling right out in front of my house yesterday. And I was called out there, said all these buzzards out here. And, most people would never pay attention to something like that. But I went out to put my eyes on them to see how I felt about it. And when I put my eyes on them, it did not feel good. And so I then changed my countenance, my emotion, and projected the wind scattering them, basically. They were all right in one group going around in circles, like there's at least 30 of them there. They were circling and circling, and I said, I actually didn't get a chance to even speak. I just expected that they would scatter, and they immediately scattered. And Kim said, she said, "Oh my God, you walk out on the porch and they all fly away," because that's what I expected. And these are things that are even new to me, learning how to stand in our dominion, the powers that God has accessible to us, because we have dominion. He gave us dominion over all creatures, over the whole earth. He gave us dominion. But yet, a lot of people want to think that's crazy or something because they don't want us to have our power. They don't want us to be aware that we have these things that are accessible through faith. So I'm glad that you're embracing those things. And yeah, so I apologize to interrupt so much, but I guess
that's you're fine. You're fine.
Go ahead. If you have some more you want to talk about, go for it.
Okay. The next thing that I remember happening was I think I was in my late 20s, and I was driving to Florida, and I was by myself, and I was getting, I think I was like near exit 5 in Georgia. I believe it was exit 5. I'm not positive. But a couple of exits before that, I had made a rest stop, got back on the road. And, when you're driving from New York to Florida, you just want to get there. And, I had just hit Georgia, and all of a sudden I got this feeling to get off this next exit, I felt compelled, like really, really compelled, like get off on this exit. You have to get off this exit. And I'm like arguing with myself. I'm like, but I just, made a stop. Like, why would I stop at this get off in this exit? And, so I was arguing with myself a little bit there, and, because I didn't really want to do it, but I just felt extremely compelled to do it, and I was slowing down as it happened so I could make my decision, and so I decided to get off the exit. I'm like, okay, so I got off the exit, and I make a right. I mean, I really don't know, where I'm at. I've never been there before, and I make a right, and it was 2 lanes on one side. I stayed in the right lane, and as I'm coming up to the to go under the overpass, there was this little whirlwind of leaves that was, I don't know, maybe 5 inches high, and it was coming straight across the road from left to right. And for some reason, I don't know why, and I know this sounds really weird, but I got the feeling that I should stop so I don't run him over. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, it's just a little whirlwind of leaves. It's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 leaves, in like a little tornado.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gotten an image in my head. I didn't see anything in it, but I had gotten an image in my head of like this little, I don't know, like a fairy type creature, I guess. It was like a dark green and had a walking stick or cane or something, and the car behind me went around me because I kind of just about stopped because something just told me not to run it over. And so I go up under the underpass, and it just kind of freaked me out a little bit. And there was two gas stations on the other side of the road. They were no longer, they were empty. So I just pulled in to turn around, but I just stopped for a minute because I just was trying to register what happened. And I'm like, why did I do that? And why did I feel that way? You know what I mean? But, and also it was like a deja vu, like I had done this before. And so the only thing I could think of is that I had a dream about it, about this happening, the same exact thing. Cause it was like, I've done it before and I couldn't figure out. I'm like, I've never drove down here by myself before, so the only conclusion I came to was that I had a dream, of that same exact thing.
So, okay. Tell me a little bit more about so you've seen this little whirlwind.
Yeah, it was like a leaf, the dry leaves.
Yeah, the whirlwind. Yeah, we've all seen them. It's the movement of all creation. The whirlwind that you'll see. That's just a little example of it. You see it above the fire and the smoke when a fire is burning. You can even get fire tornadoes. You see it in a hurricane when the toilet flushes. It's everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, also that is the same functional way a portal works. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
And so then all of a sudden, after seeing this, you see a little green man, did you say green?
Yeah, it was, I didn't see anything, but it just popped in my head. You know what I mean? The picture of it popped in my head.
So the image of this thing came in your head.
Yes.
Huh. That is interesting.
Yeah.
And what did this have to do with the urgency to get off the road?
That was why I sat at the gas station for a little bit, because I was trying to figure out what was going on. Why did I feel such a strong urgency to get off the road? To get off that exit, that specific exit. And because it was like my compulsion was directing me to this exit. You know what I mean? Not the next one, not the one before, but that one. I just went by my feeling, the strong compulsion to get off that exit. I mean, who knows? Maybe I avoided something. I don't know. I mean, I remember getting back on the highway. I didn't see any accident or anything, but I don't know. I always that always confounded me.
Well, I always think, because that happens to me occasionally, and you get the compulsion. It's like some pushing you, telling you, okay. Like sometimes even it's kind of like, don't go now, or wait a little bit before you go, or don't go down that road, or all these little things. And if we listen to them, of course, we never get to know what would have happened, which is the thing, which is the whole purpose. So was it just a compulsion, or did you hear a voice at all, or?
Well, I do remember it being very visceral, like my whole body was like tensed up, like you got to get off this exit. You know what I mean? Like it was such an urgency. And I'm not sure if it was another voice or maybe the voice that you have inside. I couldn't tell, but it was just such a strong, very, very, I don't know if I've ever felt anything as strong in my life since then, that I had to get off that exit.
Shannon, you ever had a moment where like you're just doing whatever and all of a sudden it feels like something just shakes you? And you're like,
that so many times. Let me tell you, and I mean, before the pandemic, I I had that for literally 3-4 weeks straight. And I kept telling everybody I have this feeling, just, blah, blah, blah. Everyone just kept saying whatever. And so I remember hanging out and saying, hey, because it was around my birthday, if we're going to have any kind of celebration of any kind, we need to do it now. And they're like, why would you say that? Everything's going to be fine. They're not going to do anything. And so I was like, no, we need to do this now because it's not going to get to happen. And sure enough, a week later, it was on. And I was like, see, aren't you glad? Got to hang out for a celebration before all that happened. But I mean, there are times that I know I've been late because, all these things happen and I'm like trying to fight against all this insanity, and then come to find out, oh, I just missed this major car accident on the road as I'm passing it by 15 minutes later than I'm supposed to be. And I mean, there's just so many moments I've had like that where God is like nudging me saying, I know you are trying to be on time, but or I know you want to go over here, but that's not my plan.
Right.
I'm like, thanks for saving me. Oh my gosh.
I remember, I think you said something about slow motion, didn't you, earlier?
Yeah, when I get the premonition.
Yeah, I've experienced that slow motion thing a number of times in my life too.
Me too.
Where literally every second is stretched out to like, it's hard to describe or put a time on it.
Yeah,
it's all of a sudden you're engaged at a level of intensity that you can, that it seems like everything is slowed down. It's happened to me a few times when I was about to get killed, a few different times.
Oh yeah.
And everything would go into slow motion, and then that kind of thing. Is that the only time you've ever experienced that, Laura?
No. That was the next thing I was going to tell you. In 1999, my husband, my brother-in-law, sister-in-law came up, and from Florida, and it was in June. It was my sister-in-law's birthday. We didn't have any kids at the time, and they wanted to go down to New York City because we only live like an hour from the city, and she had specific places she wanted to go visit. So, we're like, okay, so we take them down, and one of the places we visited, she wanted to go up to the top of the World Trade Center. So we went up, and we're just, me and my husband were just kind of hanging around because we've been there, but she wanted to look around and look through the little telescope things and stuff. So then we come back down the elevator. We stand right outside the building off to the side, and we were standing there probably 20 minutes, half hour, so trying to figure out where to go next. And so while we're standing there, like whenever I go to the city, I always like to stand next to the building and look up, at the top of the buildings. And so when I did that, when I looked up at the top of the World Trade Center, I started getting multiple flashes of premonitions. And the first one, it was weird because it was like, that's all I could see in front of my eyes. It was like strong. It wasn't just in my mind. It was like in front of my eyes. Like it was like somebody held a picture in front of me, a short motion picture, and then held another one, then another one. And the first thing I saw was the buildings, the World Trade Centers. They looked like they were made of rubber, is the only way I can describe it. And it was like, do you ever take like a pencil, you hold it by the end and you start shaking it up and down and it makes it look like it's made of rubber?
Yeah.
That's what the buildings look like. That's what I saw the buildings doing, wavering like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
then the next picture comes, and I see what looked like a person with their arms and legs extended out, falling down from the building. And then the next picture comes, and it was a piece of the facade of the front of the World Trade Center, just a piece of it standing up. And I
Wow.
was like, because it happened in like rapid succession, and I didn't know what to make of it at the time.
When did this happen again?
In June of 1999.
June of 99, you had premonition type vision images.
When I looked up to the top, because we're on the ground.
When you were there looking up at it,
Yeah.
you've seen this stuff. Wow.
Yeah, it was like rapid succession.
And of course, there would be many people that would say you know, you're this, you're that, whatever. But the thing is that I believe you because I know that there are great gifts that we get given and we have access to. There are gifts right now that people that are hearing my voice have that they've suppressed
Oh yeah.
intentionally
Oh yeah.
as a child. Media and all kinds of things will, even the church even will tell
Oh
you
yeah.
to suppress things, that
Oh,
that's a demon or that's this or that's that. And, and it's, yeah, it's something you've got to embrace. Like I said, that is so amazing that you've seen that before. But go ahead if you have any more to say about it.
Yeah, well, so what happened was I felt very, very, very compelled to say something. I'm like, I didn't want to say anything because, again, I don't want to look like I'm crazy, because, we, my in-laws and my husband, we all come from a different time. You talk about stuff like that, you're going to look crazy, right? But at the time, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, who cares? Just say something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I called them over, and I said, I just want to tell you guys something. And I explained it to him, and I told him what happened. And my sister-in-law looks at me and she's like, wow. She's like, if those buildings came down, she's like, uh, a lot of people would die. And I was like, they will. And then right after I said that, I'm like, why did I say they will? You know what I mean? Like I didn't think about what I was saying. The words just came out of my mouth, But I
Say,
told them,
say those words again.
she said, well, if those buildings were to come down, she said a lot of people will die, would die. And I said they will. And like I said, I didn't, those words just came out of my mouth. I didn't think about it. I just spoke,
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, that's
I
one thing.
told them to remember it. I said, please remember what I'm telling you right now. And they were just like, okay, they were probably like, okay, she's crazy, you know what I mean? But what's weird was, a couple of years later, I was home. My husband was at his business, and I was coming in a little late. And because I got up a little bit later, and I was making coffee, and I turned the news on, and I started, seeing, 9/11 on the news. And I was like, oh my God. And so I watched it. And what really gave me the chills was the part when they showed on the news the piece of that facade sticking up, because it was the same exact shape as what I saw.
Oh wow!
And that just
I
freaked
bet
me
that
out.
I bet that freaked you out pretty good.
Oh yeah, I had the chills. I really did for a while, because every time I thought about it, it gave me the chills.
Now, have you ever tried to, let's just put it in simple words, take ownership of this ability and try to use it?
You mean
these supernatural gifts that these experiences, Have you ever tried to use your vision capability or to use your ability to speak without talking? Have you ever tried to intentionally use it?
Well, I can tell you as far as putting. I know this sounds so crazy, but
Hey, you're hanging out with the crazy bunch, so you're good. Go ahead.
There was a few times in my life that I thought I may have transferred a thought to somebody, because I mean, if you think about it, we're surrounded by energy, so you have to be able to do it. You just got to learn how to do it.
Right.
And there there was a time, um probably about 10 years ago, there was some people that um we were not getting along with, and they were doing really vicious things towards me. And I sent a bad thought when I saw the person, and I know I shouldn't have done it, but I was just so upset over what had gone on. And I know I all I can say is that the person must have gotten that thought, because they stopped in the middle of their walk and they grabbed their head, scratching their head, like they looked a little scared. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
right after I did it. So I was thinking that, I was assuming that it must have worked. You
So
know?
then, to answer my question, you have tried to use it a few times intentionally, but
Yes.
in that case, you were being a little naughty on that one. It sounds
Yes,
like.
I was.
I
Yeah.
have a situation that happened that wasn't like that at all, wasn't intentional, but sometimes you're really close to someone. One of my best friends was making a comment. We were talking about cooking, and I was like, oh, I did all this cooking a while back ago, and this was before I had kids and was kind of in the domesticated situation. And she, in her mind, because she apparently didn't say it out loud, said, yeah, right, you're cooking. And I was like, I answered her like she had taught. I was like, hey, I know how to cook. I can make food. And she was like stunned, like, what the heck? I didn't say anything out loud. I was like, I heard you loud and clear.
That's happened to me so many times. So many times.
It's the closer for me, the closer I'm with someone, the more time I spend around someone, the more I can feel them. And I'll be honest with you, this comes to a point sometimes that it's in some ways not good. Let's put it this way: I've had a number of people in my life that some that I wasn't even really close with, like really good friends. I was just around them sometimes. And like in this one case, I was around this guy that I didn't really like him. He put off talking about feeling other people, he put off a bad vibe. And he hadn't done anything or even said anything necessarily, but he put off, I could feel him. And it was a bad vibe. And so I didn't really try to become closer friends with him or anything. We were just associates or whatever. It was hanging out with some people after work, basically. And when I used to work at a Micron in Idaho. And I felt what I would describe as dread over him, like a dread feeling that I could feel when I was looking and focusing on him. And it was probably about 2 weeks later, he drowned in a boating situation.
Wow.
And come to find out, the husband, he was his best friend, which was the house we were at. He was fooling around with his best friend's wife on the side. and hence a lot of bad vibe. And the husband took him out to the mountains, got him intoxicated, and pushed him off the boat in the middle of the lake with the water, with ice on the water. Not, it was just thin ice, but it was extremely cold water, and he took him out and pushed him off the boat. Came out later that he murdered him, but what it was is that I could feel, and this happens fairly often. Well, it doesn't happen often. It happens occasionally where I'm around people, I can feel death on them. And it's not something I want to feel, but when I can even be in a grocery store or somewhere, and I'm with somebody, like in the last 2 years, I don't really bring it up that much, but around people, when I'm around others and stuff, I don't tell them, hey, I feel death on you. They would, that would be bad news to get right. But I felt it a lot lately, and it's a dread feeling that I get when I'm around a person. And another one that happened to me, Laura, was when I was I was living in Idaho, and I went home on vacation, and I hadn't seen my brother and his daughters, and and it had been a couple of years. And then we had a cookout out in the garage, and everything, and everybody's hanging out. And my brother's daughter was there, and she had brought a friend that I'd never met before. And we've all met her and everything, and oh, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. So, just normal stuff. And then I get this dread feeling about her come over me again. And at this point in my life, I kind of already started knowing that this was bad, what it normally ended with. And so I told the person I was with, we'll just put it like that, the person I was with, I told them about it. And they were like, oh, no, well, I hope not, blah, 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 right? And then the person I was with, it was like my ex-wife. So, bad subject, I don't want to get on there. Anyways, and a week later, she was killed in an airplane crash.
Oh, my.
Yeah, she died in an airplane crash.
Wow.
And that is, so, I was just coming off what you're talking about being able to, feeling people's vibe and, being able to communicate and feel things. And that's one area where I really...
In tune.
In tune, unfortunately. And I feel people in a lot of other ways, like my girl that I'm with, of course, my love of my life, if she's not feeling good, if she's sick, it'll make me sick. Or if she's having a bad day, I can feel it. Whether she's in my presence or not, I always know what's going on with her. I'm in tune, being able to feel her.
Right.
And she says she can feel me too. And I've had that with a few other people in the past, where I remember one time with a lady that I was pretty close with at one time, and she was telling me a story about a friend that she knew, and she was telling the story, and I said, while she's telling it, I said, does she have shoulder length brown hair? She said, yeah. I said, does she wear glasses? Yeah. Is she, and I started naming off all these things about her, because I could see her in my mind.
Yeah.
In my mind's eye, I could see, because she was describing this person and she was thinking about this person, so I could see it.
Right.
And these are all gifts that people would try to say that we're crazy and this, that, and the other, but I say they're the ones that are missing out.
Oh, yeah.
that we should embrace these things. Don't you think, Dan? I know what Dan thinks.
I know that I had a lot of
Dan, you hear me?
like that.
I am. There's a lot of camera problems.
Can you hear
Once
me?
again,
Okay.
we have to start learning to trust our anointing. And like in Laura's case, where the Lord is starting to open up her to be a seer. And you can see seer like in Samuel in the Old Testament, Gomer, some of those. You'll start having a prophetic voice start coming forth, where you'll know what the Lord is telling you to go tell someone, and there's not anything you can do to resist it. It just keeps building stronger.
Right.
So when you see these things, know that the Lord is showing you and demonstrating through you a situation where others will learn and start to open themselves up.
Right. I hope so.
You mentioned
I know that's kind of wild, but if we take a look at the gifts given to us by the Holy Spirit, and then the gifts given to us by the Lord himself, and start to trust that anointing, because that anointing is working. It's like in Daniel's case when he walked out amongst the buzzards. The anointing off him automatically scattered them. He didn't have to speak.
Mm-hmm. That's been happening.
So I'm sorry, I got a little wordy there.
You know, that's been happening. I don't even think I told Shannon about this, but I have video actually of this I've taken. But a couple of weeks ago, I had a bird kept showing up at the house. Had some blue on it. I think it was a male. Kept showing up, and it would go out there on the side of the car, and it would right by the rear view mirror on the driver's side. It would sit there and look at itself in the mirror, and it would peck at itself sometimes, and it would jump up on top of the mirror, and it would poop on the mirror and on the car. And like I've said, when anything that's not absolutely normal, mundane happens, I pay attention. You have to stop, and you have to discern, and you have to ask Father for the Holy Spirit to help you understand what's going on. And I've talked to Dan about this. This bird, you know, the first time I seen it, I didn't think much of it, to be honest. But the next day, he came back again. Then the next day, he came back again. And then he started coming a couple times a day. And I was talking to Dan about it. And, you know, because I'm paying attention at this point. So I'm like, okay, I got to do something about this bird. So one day I was sitting out on the porch. This is probably about a week ago. I was sitting on the porch. And this bird comes. And he goes to doing his thing. He's looking in a mirror. Well, mirror is something a witch uses to look through, to be able to see things, to be a seer from the dark side kind of thing. And witches use a mirror. And this bird is absolutely fascinated with my mirror. And got me to thinking about that. You know, why is this bird fascinated with my mirror, but not really? I mean, he's coming here every day. It's like he's waiting to come. And he would then come and fly right up on the porch where I'm sitting at. He would come and land on the edge of the rail right from me, like 3 feet away. And after he did it twice, I said, okay, something's wrong. Something's up with this bird. And spoke to Dan about it quite a bit. And Dan said, there's a witch that's sending him. And I thought about it. I prayed about it. And in fact, there is a witch. And there's a witch that's doing things. And you may be watching. And I rebuke you in the name of our Father in heaven and Jesus Christ, our Savior. And you will not be successful at anything that you're trying to do. I will break everything you send at me, because I stand in the dominion of my Father in heaven gives me. And I'm more powerful than you know of, because my Father is all powerful. And if he's with me, you can't do nothing to me. Your days of messing with my life are over. You can try, but you're going to fail. So the bird flew back up, landed right out in front of me. I'm sitting on the porch. He landed about 4 foot from me on the mat, again for about the fourth or fifth time. I'd had enough. So I stood up, and my countenance changed. Ice cold water ran down my back. Whew, I can feel it now.
Did you say this bird had blue?
Had blue. Had blue, and it was like blue and gray.
This just reminds me of all the blue light stuff that has been happening.
The heliotrope stuff.
They're connected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I stood up and that cold water run down my back, I expected that bird would never come back. And I went to speak it, but before I could even speak it, the bird departed, and he's gone. He won't be coming back anymore. Whoever the person is out there that's working the dark side against me, you should lay that down, and you should turn your life over to our Father and stop working dark things against people. You probably have a gift which could be used for great good. Instead, you're using it for evil. I hope you would consider what you're doing and what it's going to mean for you. But there's always a chance to turn back, and you have that chance. My Father in heaven is very forgiving, and he'll forgive you for the things you've done. You may think that you've done more than could be forgivable for, and that you're trapped in where you're at. My Father can break all binds. He can break all yokes. He can break all agreements. And he can welcome you back into his loving arms. So it's for you to choose which direction on this path you're going to go. You're at a Y in the road now. I've called you on the spot. And I know you're watching. You're at the Y in the road. You have a choice. I'm sorry, Laura, I'd get off on a tangent every now and then.
That's okay.
Because this stuff has been going on, and it's related for us to understand that we have to stand in that authority and expect. So, Laura, you got any other supernatural stuff going on you want to talk about?
Well, I could tell you about the latest thing that happened to me several years ago.
Uh-huh.
And it kind of goes, I truly believe it goes hand in hand with, that's the last story that I talked about with, sending bad thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Because it was, some awful neighbors. Okay. And, so it got really bad. The harassment became really bad, and it was hard. It's hard when they don't have kids, but I did, right? So, and they were younger, so it becomes very hard, on a daily basis when you're trying to take care of kids, and whatnot. So, some resentment built up. Yeah, those were not the greatest years for me. It was, but it wasn't. It was with my kids, but the other things that were happening was not, I'd rather not have gone through it.
Right.
But there was other things in my life going on also. There was a lot of things going on. And I had gone back to college. I had been back in college for like a year at the time. It happened, it was like March, April of 2016. And I was, I'd gone to bed and I like to flip through some videos and stuff, and I always like to like research things, and so back then, when you would go through videos and stuff, usually you would get suggestions of videos of things that you were looking at, you know what I mean, your history and stuff. And this video kept coming up of this ritual. It was supposed to be a real, a live ritual for Azazel, and
Okay.
I kept blowing it off. Before I get there, I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, if it's connected at all. I'm not really sure. Um, the end of 2015, my mother's sister passed away, my aunt, on December 26th, and then it was like December or January 1st, 2nd, somewhere around there. I had real bad issues with low back pain. At that time I was really in, a lot of pain, and I had finally gone to sleep, and I think it was coming near morning, probably like 5 o'clock or so. Um, you know how when your eyes are closed, you can see that there's light on. You know what I mean? Like
Uh,
even though you keep your eyes closed, you can still kind of see like a faint light coming through your eyelids. You know what I mean? And I was laying there because I was trying to go back to sleep. So all of a sudden, it seemed like there was a not a bright light, but like a soft glow light was on in my room. And just before that, I was feeling like this high vibration, and the pain was going away in my back, and it became more intense and more intense, the high vibration, and it felt great. I'm like, I want to hold on to this because I feel great right now. And I started getting the feeling that there was somebody in my room, but I didn't want to open my eyes because that high vibration felt really good, and it was causing me to not feel any pain at all. And so then finally I opened my eyes because I had to see if there was somebody in my room. But it was like before, right before I had a chance to get my eyelids open enough in order to see, the light disappeared, but the vibration stayed for a little while, and then it slowly faded. And I don't know what that was about. But I would say at that point in time in my life was not good. And so then a couple months later, like I said, I was going through videos, and this video for about a week kept coming up on my feed, and it was probably 8, 9 o'clock at night. I wasn't usually, when I go to sleep, it takes me a good hour to fall asleep. I have to. It's hard for me to sleep, but so I was laying there, and the video came up, played next, and I was like, you know what, because I was raised that all of this is bullocks. It's not real. It's not true. You know what I mean? And blah blah. So I honestly, at that point in my life, really didn't think that stuff like this was true. And so I figured I'd get a good laugh watching this live ritual video. And So I watched it and I did kind of laugh, and then like halfway through the video, all of a sudden I got very sleepy, and I was like suddenly tired. Now, like I said, I have to lay down, I have to get comfortable, and it takes me a good hour to go to sleep. And before I realized it, I was I was asleep. And the only reason why I know I was sleeping was because when I woke up, I caught like the last second of the video, and the guy that made the video, he was in a circle, and he was kneeling down on his knees. He had jeans on and boots, and he had no shirt on, and he was just getting up from his hands, and he put his hands on his thighs, because he just sat up straight, and then the video ended. And so, because I don't know, it was this was several years ago, so I watched it a few more times. I watched it actually two more times. It kept coming up in my feed, but I wanted to watch it through to see, that part that I missed. And the next two times, the same thing, in like the same exact spot in the video, I started getting sleepy and I would fall asleep, and I would wake up at the same exact time, the last second of the video. And so I was like, you know, it's stupid anyway. You know what I mean? Because I got tired of trying to watch the video and I kept falling asleep. So, not much longer later, I would say maybe a couple weeks or more, my daughters were on a swim team, and so I had to go pick them up. It was like 5 o'clock, and it was like just starting to get dark. So I went and picked them up, and I'm in my pickup, and we're driving back. My younger daughter was sitting in front, and as I turned onto the road, see, we live on like a dead end road, so I turned onto the road before I turned onto our dead end road. I saw from the corner of my eye, my right side, I saw a movement. So I look, and I swear on anything that it was a shadow man, a real actual shadow man, ran across right in front of my truck. And as soon as he got to the yellow line, he just made this huge leap into the air and jumped over to the other side of the road. And I was just like, what was that? I've never seen anything like that ever in my life. And so I'm not sure if my younger daughter saw it. I later on after she said she did, but I don't know. She was about 9, 10 at the time. And so we get home. I pull in driveway. We get out. We had to walk past the side of the house to the front porch to get in the house. Soon as we got on the front porch, the hair on the back of my neck and on my arm stood up, and it felt like. Do you ever go outside like just before a, a lightning storm, or like during a lightning storm, and
I
the
sit
hair
out in
stands
lightning
up?
storms.
I'm sorry.
I sit out or stand out in lightning storms.
Yeah, so you know what I mean with that electricity in the air and all the hair stands up,
Oh yeah.
and that it felt like pure electricity on my porch. And there was no thunderstorms or anything that day. And it happened as soon as I stepped onto the porch, and I felt like we were in danger, like serious danger. And so I hurry up, got my kids in the house, of course, and I didn't see anything though. But then I think I don't know if it was that night, or I think it might have been like the next night. I was putting my kids to bed, and I was reading them a story, and the whole house was quiet. My husband was in bed. There was nothing on, no TV or anything. And I was reading them a story, and all of a sudden, right above our heads, it sounded like somebody who was wearing boots took 3 steps on our roof, and the roof is right above our head in the bedroom. And I was like, "Oh my god, what was that?" And my girls, I was like, "Did you girls hear that?" And they were like, "Yeah, it sounded like someone walking on the roof." And I thought about it, later on. I'm like, "There's something wrong with that, because if there was somebody up on the roof, they would have had to have start at the edge and walked across to the other edge." You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't just start walking 3 steps
Mhm.
in the middle of your roof. You know what I mean?
Not
So
naturally, anyways.
yeah, right. So I was just like, that was weird. And then the next thing that happened, it was like I think it was like 2 days later, maybe. Um, I have pets, and I have cats, and I've always been an animal lover since I was little. And I was walking past our basement door, which is usually open, and I walked back and forth. I was doing something, and I was about to feed the cat, and it was like the third time I walked past the door, I got this bad feeling. This like a primal fear is the best way I could describe it. And that's what I felt on the porch, like a primal fear, which I've never felt before. I've never felt that before, and I knew right away it was a primal fear. I don't know why, but I guess you just know.
Hmm.
And I felt like there was something in the basement, like at the bottom of the stairs. And so I'm trying to like distract myself from it, you know. And I was like singing to my cat, and then all of a sudden I hear this real deep man's voice go meow, like he was kind of like mimicking me. You know what I mean? Because the I was had been saying meow, was to my talking to my cat, and I was just like, you know, oh my god, and I just ignored it, and just kept doing what I was doing. And then the next time it happened, which was, a day or two later, I'm in bed, and all of a sudden, I my stomach, it started to like hurt, and then it started hurting worse and worse and worse, and it felt like my stomach was literally twisting up, like it felt like it was literally twisting. And it was gut wrenching. Like, I sat up a little bit because I'm like, what in the world is that? You know what I mean? Like, why am I feeling this? And I laid back down, and all of a sudden, and I was trying to go to sleep. All of a sudden I felt a presence at the end of my bed. And just when I was about to open my eyes to look, I felt like there was I was surrounded on my bed with three beings, one on my left, one on my right, and one right behind my head. I just felt like that was like a good presence, but at the end of my bed was a not so good presence. And there were like the ones surrounding me were like, don't open your eyes, don't open your eyes. And this was all like through telepathy. And I was like, but I really want to look. And they're like, don't look. They were like, it was loud, they were like, don't look, don't open your eyes. And I'm like, but why? I'm just I've always been a very curious person, and I just wanted to look to see. And by now I had a feeling of what it was, and it just kept telling me not to look, so I didn't. And then I felt it eventually like slowly fade away, and that knot in my stomach also dissipated. And then after that, I kept hearing on our we have a large front porch. It's like 30 feet long. It would sound like somebody was taking a desk or something and flipping it on its side repeatedly. This would be late at night. I don't know, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it happened. I'd say for probably about uh maybe a month or two. And the only reason why I kept debating, am I going crazy or something, and because I'm feeling this, I'm seeing that, and I'm hearing this, and one day I never mentioned anything to my husband, and one day my husband is like, "What's all that banging on the porch at night?" I'm like, "I have no idea," so my husband heard it too. And then my younger daughter had told me, uh it was later on, probably a couple of months later on after this happened, that she used to see this little like shadow climbing up the corner of her wall, and she said she was scared of it. But she didn't tell me at the time when it was happening. And I have an armoire in my room, and I used to have my what is it, the DVR for security cameras up there, and I had it up there for years, so I'm familiar with all the lights that comes from the DVR. One night I had come upstairs, and I had a habit of not of like I had the light on and I shut it off, and I turned around and I noticed these two green lights, and I'm like, that thing doesn't have green lights. So I'm slowly walking towards my armoire, looking at the top of it, and it looked like it was like a black shadow that came to a peak and then back down on the other side. And the eyes were weird. Like the only way I can explain it is like back in the 70s, if you ever had any like cheap toys or anything with lights on it, you would see it was like a round cylinder about an eighth of an inch high, and it looked like the clear plastic that would have bubbles in it, because the manufacturing process wasn't that good. You know what I mean? But it was like a bright green, you know, and I walked towards it, and then all of a sudden it blinked, and I'm like, okay, so I just turned around and got in bed and just ignored it. And that was pretty much it. But
Well, you've had a whole lot of supernatural going on, apparently. I mean,
yeah,
you were holding out on us. Yeah, you've had a whole lot going on. I mean, you name it, you got it going on, it seems like. I mean,
yeah.
you got who knows what landing and walking on the roof of your house. You got things banging on the house and all kind of, just quite a
Well,
lot of things going on there.
I've come to the conclusion that it was from my research that I've done. It was because the ritual that I watched was for exorcism. So I can only assume that it was him that was coming here, 3 times, because he came 3 times. Okay, and that's what they say, that they come, that they do things in threes, right? Three footsteps. You know what I mean? Came
Yeah.
visited 3 times. Um, the crazier part though is I was trying to get a hold of the person who made the video. Now I only wanted to find out if he had, because a few months later I watched the video again, because I was telling people, be careful about what you watch, videos you watch, because these things can come through from watching these videos. And I'd never believed in things like that before, ever in my life. A year before that, I would have, if I had talked to me a year ahead of time, I would have been like, yeah, you're crazy. You know what I mean? But so I had to find out if he had edited the video and then reposted it, without that ending. So you could call the guy. You used to be able to call the guy to ask him for, information on, like tarot card readings. And he's like, ask me anything you want, So me, I'm like, okay, so I asked him if he would do 30-minute, because he only did 1 hour time. I didn't need to talk to him for an hour. So I had emailed him and said, can you offer 30-minute increments? And so he did. So I paid for 30 minutes to talk to him. And when I called him, when he first talked to me, he's like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And of course, he's running a business, be it what it may. And he was super nice. And so I told him, I said, I just wanted to. I said, you said I could ask anything. You could talk about anything. I said, so I want to know about your video that you made. And I told him the video, and I said, my question is, I said, did you ever edit the video and repost it? And this was before I said anything to him. And he said, no. He's like, I don't have time for that. He's like, I'm too busy. He's like, I post the videos and just move on. So I'm like, okay. I said, now I want to ask you about the video. So I explained to him when I watched the video, and I told him how when I would wake up, I would see him kneeling in a circle, and he was on his knees, and he'd get back up, and he was wearing no shirt, jeans, and boots. He wasn't saying anything. He wasn't talking anymore. He just sat there listening to me. And I got the feeling like he didn't know what to say. He was flabbergasted, and he didn't say, "Oh no, I never did that." He said, "No." He's like, "Well, I did have that in the video, but," he said, "before I posted it," he said, "it didn't feel right to post that part of the video online." He said, "So I took it out before I posted it." So, and I ended up being on the phone with the guy for an hour, because the guy was just so freaked out that I was telling him about a part of the video that he never even posted.
Right? Yeah, I bet that did freak him out.
Yeah.
he met someone that actually has some ability with actually seeing. Yeah, it sounds pretty much blew his mind a little bit.
He was stunned. That's for sure.
I bet so. Well, Laura, I sure greatly appreciate you coming here on the show today and sharing all these supernatural events that have taken place in your life. I mean,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I wanted to check with Dan and with Shannon and see if they have any thoughts or anything they'd like to share in the.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, Daniel. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say my biggest point of coming on here was to let people know, I know there's people out there that do believe that things can come through videos, but there's people that don't believe it, and I was one of them, and I just wanted to let people know, just be careful about what you watch,
Yeah, the eyes are windows. They're gateways. They are points of creation. They can when you see something, just like when you hear something. Like my policy is I don't read or listen to or allow negativity to enter my space. I don't allow it as much as possible to enter my head.
That's so true. It's so
things
true.
that you allow in, they're intended to hurt you. You have a choice as to whether to close your eyes, to close your ears, to choose to not read something. Like, I've went through, over the 13 or so years I've been doing this, I've went through a lot of attacks. And I had to learn, like most things, kind of the hard way, the best way to deal with these things, which is to not give them a voice.
I never thought I was going to
I
get
rarely
this.
do that. I called out the witch earlier, and I rarely do that, but I want her or he to let them know that I know, and they're done. So that's the only message I had for them.
I didn't think I was going to get this story out because you wouldn't believe what I've been through trying to get somebody to listen. Even to just that one story, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And because I wanted to let people know about that, because like I said, even I was a skeptic on that stuff,
Mm-hmm. Well, we've all been skeptics on pretty much everything, right?
Right.
But there comes a time when you have to start realizing that there are a lot of things that we don't understand, and we have to stop taking everybody else's opinion for our own.
Right.
We have to think for ourselves. We have to realize that this is our trip through this world that Father created for us, and we need to take responsibility and stand in our own place and make our own choices as to whether or not we are on this path or that path. Because if you just follow this world and let people do it, you'll be all over everywhere, and it's just a mess.
Exactly.
You got to stand in your own authority and choose your own path and not allow anyone to bend you or anyone to push you. This is your trip, your life.
Yeah.
They can do it in their own life, but don't come messing with mine.
Right.
But again, thank you very much, Laura. And let me check in with Dan.
Okay.
We haven't let him talk much at all today, and Dan loves to talk. So I know it's killing him. Anyway, Dan.
Oh, I don't know that I love to talk. The thing I would say here is that especially with the green light, you have something trying to manifest. Green light is usually, or a green entity is usually a perverse spirit that is trying to manifest. You just stick with your faith and stand upon the holy word, and none of these things will come nigh you. They want you to open yourself up to them so that they have access. So your ability to stand on the word and hang on to what you have is awesome.
And
because this has been tracking you since you were a little girl.
Yeah, like I said, at that point, it was not a good time in my life. But the thing I did forget to say was, real quick, was after the videos and the visits, I was starting. It was like I was getting a download to carry out a ritual. Like I ordered a banner, one of those ritual banners, and I don't even know why I did. It was just like it was like I felt compelled to, and I don't know why I did. I really can't say why. And I ended up getting 2 of them. And so I told the guy, I was like, you sent me another one by accident. Do you want me to send it back? And he's like, no, that's all right. And I was ordering some books and things like that. It was just weird because I never knew anything about rituals like that. And it was all starting to come together. It's like I went to a crystal store and I was buying these certain crystals that I felt attracted to. And the second time after I was in there, the guy behind the counter, he's like, wait, what are you doing? He's like, are you setting up for a ritual? Which I thought, I'm like, to myself, I'm like, no, you know what I mean? Because I don't know what stones you use for a ritual. You know what I mean? But I did end up throwing all that stuff away. So
if you do get a chance, do a little research on SRA, satanic ritual abuse. And just kind of look into that a little bit. See if anything kind of rings a bell, because a lot of people, including myself, had come to find out that this knowledge had been placed inside of us without our conscious awareness. And not saying that that's happened to you in any way, shape, or form, but somehow this knowledge was already within you, and something triggered that and was trying to bring it out in you. So I encourage you to take it up to the Lord Jesus, pray about it, and do a little bit of research into that.
Yeah, I've heard quite a few stories on that, from people talking and stuff. I'm absolutely sure that didn't happen to me as a child, only because I don't want to say, but I know when I was an adult, you just know, you know what I mean? But I really truly believe, see, like I said, I was going down a dark path at that time before it happened for a few years, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And then that happened, with the video and stuff. And it was after that it was like I felt like I was getting a download of knowledge. It's the only way I could really describe it. It's like, get this, buy that, get this, buy that. You know what I mean? And I was doing it. I don't know why, but I was. But I was pretty flat at the time, you know, and down and out at the time, But and then I finally was like, what am I doing? It was like a year or so later. I'm like, I never did do any rituals. I just was buying some of the stuff, and I at right after the videos and all that stuff happened, the visitations. And then it's been a slowly going uphill since 2016, but I've been pulling myself out of it, and I'm finally feeling better now. That's for sure.
Well, I'll be keeping you in my prayers 100%, because I know I've been in some dark places, and
Yeah.
I totally understand. And Dan here, our awesome prayer warrior, deals with that all the time, helping people come to their empowerment in the Lord Jesus, and taking back that, and just being amazing and rebuking stuff all the time.
Right, like Daniel said, like attracts like. You know what I mean? And that was like the lowest point of my life at that time. So, I think that's why I attracted what I did.
Well, guys, we are coming up here on 2 hours for a show, and so I'm going to have you back again sometime to continue telling us about the things that are going on. Now that you've been able to speak it and explain it and understand that you're not crazy, and that these things are going on in your life for a purpose, and it's okay to talk about, especially here on the Supernatural Show, and on our website, TheSupernatural.Show. Y'all guys can go there and talk about these things, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there that understand these kind of things and would be willing to talk to you, and you can become friends, and you can even exchange phone numbers, and you can do all kinds of things like that. So if you feel like you're alone out there somewhere, you're not alone, and you have the ability to find other people that you can talk to, like us, and like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, closing in, heading towards 1,000 on the website, TheSupernatural.Show. But again, Laura, I thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know what happened to Dan. You can hang around if you want for a minute after after we close the show here. I didn't tell you about that, but you don't have to leave.
Okay.
But we're going to close out the show basically
Okay.
now, and then we'll see you right here, just the same as where you're at after we finish up the work I need to do. But one thing I wanted to do before that, though, is I wanted to share the screen, because you're talking about a lot of things that you're dealing with, that you've been dealing with, and how we were talking about how Dan deals with a lot of this stuff. And and I deal with these things as well, obviously. But if you're out there and you need or would like to talk to one of us in private about something that's going on in your life, and you can do that, and all you have to do is come over to the website, and under the homepage there is a Supernatural Consultants button right here, and you can come here and click on that. It'll bring you here, Supernatural Consultations, and you can come down and go through the process of booking an hour with one of us. And if you don't have any money, we'll still help you. If you're able to donate $5, $10 or whatever you can do, that's great too. But either way, you can still speak to one of us individually, and you can schedule it simply by just going here and clicking. And then you can book myself, you can book Shannon, and you can also book Dan simply by, let me close this out right here, the chat. Come on, there we go. And you can so you can pick like Dan, or you can pick me or Shannon, and then after you do that, it'll narrow it down and show you what the hours that are available for each person, and then you can click on that and then go through the booking process. And like I said, it's based strictly on donations, or free if you can't afford to donate even a cup of coffee or something, because some people are in really, really extreme tight situations, and we understand that. And also I want to make one other area of the website, make us aware that it's available now. And I'm going to be updating it on a continuous basis, and that is under the home button. Also, there's a new thing called Daniel's Ark Garden. It's a new channel that Shannon doesn't know it yet, but me and Shannon are going to be doing. It's where we're going to do art gardens in our backyards. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be as small as a flower bed. But you can use the things that I'm going to teach in how to build an art garden, and do it in your own yard, or even in your own little back patio or something like that. And this page here is going to have all the details going on about that. And for the art gardens, the one that I'm going to build, and the one that Shannon hopefully will agree and do, even if it's small, because I don't know how much space Shannon has. So, but we're asking for y'all guys to consider a donation to help us get the things we need to be able to get this video series going. And that is where we're going to show how to use the knowledge that Father has given me as to how this world works, WHRLED, and how we can take a small little piece of ground and produce an enormous amount of real food, non-GMO food, without having to go to the grocery store and get it, and have it right there around you. And I'm also going to, with each piece of fruit, with each piece of vegetables, I'm going to show and demonstrate exactly the code that is built into the design, from the colors to the shape to everything about it. I'm going to demonstrate and explain what it is good for and what it is meant for. So anyways, this page will be here for the next 30 days. Well, it'll be here a lot longer than that, but for now it's here for 30 days, and I'm going to be updating it. But if you come here, there's a complete explanation that you can read through and see exactly what my plans are for the art garden and why I'm doing it. And I hope that y'all guys will help us out. If you come here, this will take you to a PayPal link where you'll be able to donate the funds. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Shannon how big of a garden she wants to do. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to divide the any donations that come in with Shannon so that she can get her garden going. And we might have to throw Dan in on that too, possibly if he's got a place where he can grow it. I'm not sure if Dan does or not, but we'll find out. Anyways, guys, my voice is starting to go out today. I've been talking too long. So let me get back down here and say thank you, Laura, for being here today. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. I think Dan's battery went bad, or as he says, I'm getting old and my bladder's full. But thank you, Dan. I appreciate you, brother, and we'll talk to you again real soon. And thank you, Shannon, of course, for being here for this special supernatural show with our guest Laura. And we'll all come back again here real soon. Matter of fact, we'll be back here on Friday. And I think Dan just popped back in. Yeah, there he is. And we'll be back here. We were just thanking you, Dan. But we'll be back here again on Friday for another show. And coming up next week, we have 3 more shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday, scheduled with guests every day. So if y'all guys want to be a guest, all you got to do is go on the website. You can come on here and tell your story. And we would love to have you on the show. Next week, we're going to have a special guest, which is going to be David from YouTube channel Jesus Freak Computer Geek. And he's going to be on the show with us sometime next week. I haven't nailed down which day, or possibly worst case the week after. We're going to work it out because Shannon's got some things going on, and she really wants to be in that show. So we're going to try to work that out if we can. So with that being said, guys, I love you all, and I'm gonna let Shannon take us out, and we're gonna play a little music we like to hear sometimes.
I hope you all come back and check us out on Friday to find out what in the supernatural is going on. Please share, like, subscribe, get these supernatural stories out. And I can't wait to see you guys next time. And remember, you're not alone.
That's right.
So alone, just know you are right at home, 'cause we are here to share, and all you have to bear. Jesus brought us all here together. Everything is in His hands. Don't you worry, we're here for you. You're not alone. Welcome to the body and soul of Jesus Christ.
Big hugs to
You do know sometimes we make mistakes, so let's try that one more time. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.